Pat, we haven't heard much of an update. I know you haven't done anything salary cap wise with Chris Bosh. He spoke on national webcast this week about possibly returning. Where does the Miami Heat stand with Chris Bosh, with that salary cap space, and will that salary cap space be utilized on the roster this offseason?
You're going to hate this answer, but I'm not going to answer that question.
And is there a reason for that?
I'm just not going to answer the question. It's been discussed enough, and that's being discussed, but there's no resolution to it right now. You guys, I think, all have the information, that's behind the possibility of what can happen. But yes, down the road, we don't have Chris's services. And look, there isn't anybody in this organization that feels worse, for CB than I do. He got a little sideways at the end because of feelings and things of that nature. But the last 3 years that a professional basketball player, has to go through like he went through, had to be horrible for him. Just the feeling that he couldn't compete, that he couldn't play the game that he loved. And from our standpoint, I don't look at it as we got anything lesser, but we did not have him for 2 months the first year. We didn't have him for the 2 months when we probably could have gotten to the finals last year. We didn't have him at the end of the season this year, and so we dealt with that as an organization and tried to work our way around that as an organization. And as far as all of the other things go, I think in due time it will run its course and take care of itself. But I can't give you a definitive answer, Ira. I just can't.
Have you been in touch with Chris or attempted to be in touch with him to work together on this situation?
There has been conversations with the organization and with Chris personally. I'll leave that at that.
Pat, you said when we talked before the season, you talked about Eric and how this was going to be probably the toughest coaching.
I said that, didn't I? Did I say that?
So how? Just talk about that and what he did and what role what he played in that part 11:30 to 30 to 11.
Well, the one night that he wanted to drive out to the Rickenbacker Bridge, I said, "Don't do it. Don't drive out there. Don't run out there. Don't run across the bridge." And at 11:30, I remember us having a conversation. He was beside himself. He had never been there. So he had never been there. He had been in situations, where he was losing or maybe losing for a little bit, but he had never been there. And I think he learned a lot about himself at that time. And I remember we were in L.A. and we took that hit against the Lakers. And I walked into his coach's office and I said, "Just coach him up, man. Coach him up. That's it. All you can do. Every day you coach him up. Whether you're playing for a title or you're trying to get out of a hole, you got to coach him up. You can't change." And that's what he did. He coached the hell out of him. And I think a lot of the things that he was trying to do and experimenting with from training camp that bled into preseason, that went into the regular season where he had to change some offensive concepts. He was trying to do certain things with this team that he didn't do last year, and the learning curve, plus the injuries and things of that nature may have caught up with him. I know you can go back and you can count on all those what they call clutch games. There was a series of games, turnovers, missed free throws, missed shots, wrong guy shooting the ball. Why didn't we double team a guy or blitz a guy or whatever? I mean, there were 7 or 8 games, and so. When that team took off and went 13-0, and it was on a roll. They were more than competent. He had made the adjustments. We had players performing, and it stayed that way to the end of the season. But I think I do think that probably this was his greatest challenge going in, and it was a great challenge for him, at 11-30. And at the end of the season, I think he showed the results by having that 30-11 record. We should have had 2 games in Miami against Chicago, though. Really, that's ridiculous. It should be a 2-2 on a tiebreaker. So make that point. If we played 2 here, instead, maybe we'd be in the playoffs. So that should not be part of a tiebreaker when it's head to head. Okay, it should be equality. I can't change the rules anyhow. Jim, what do you got to say? I can hear you.
Actually, this isn't a Heat question. This is an NBA question. A big controversy this season about resting players. Where do you come down on that issue? And if you were still coaching,
we don't rest. We don't. I don't believe in it. I think it's gotten to the point where it's become a travesty, an absolute travesty, and blatantly so. And I don't care how many players you're resting or who are the ones who are entitled to get the rest versus who doesn't rest. We don't rest. We maintain players. And obviously, in certain situations when a guy is playing, a guy is playing banged up, only you know that, then you might shorten his minutes or you might do something. But to just blatantly leave people home and not play them in that situation, I just think it's wrong. We don't rest players. We maintain them, and if a guy can't play, we won't play him. Now, you're listening to a guy that was the first one that did this in 1982. I don't know if you remember or not. Against Portland, last game of the season, I got a call from Dr. Buss, and Dr. Buss said, I'm leaving Kareem and James and Magic home. I said, what? I think I got fined $10,000, or we got fined $10,000. And I do remember also Mary Lou Liebig at the time, who was my secretary. Within the next week, there had to be 500 envelopes from Portland, manila envelopes with their season tickets, demanding their money back from me. So this goes back a long time, but not to the state that it is today. And so I think Adam Silver has. You got to do something about it. The owners have to do something about it, and let's just put a little bit more integrity into the whole concept of rest.
Waring was at that game.
He was? So he probably sent the ticket back to me also, wasn't he? Yeah, no, he was at that game. He was at the game. He was upset that he didn't get to see those guys. Isn't that something? He was at that game. He's just 37. God. It's a long time ago.
Pat, coming off that West Coast swing you referred to, the team was 1-6, and in the practice before that 13-game winning streak, Eric said he saw good signs coming off that 1-6 road trip that made you 11-30. Did you see similar signs, and was there a time during maybe that streak when you saw this team turn the corner?
He's too close to it. He's a lot closer to it than I am. So he sees the signs, as do, his coaches, and I'm not that close to it. I'm close to it, but I'm not that close to it. I mean, I can sit and talk with him about it and watch it on television or watch games or go to practices and stuff. But he's a coach that has learned about everything. In the 9 years that he's been a head coach, he's been through everything, and so he's experienced it all. And I think he has a reservoir of knowledge about all things that happen when you're a head coach, and I think he brings those things up. But what happens, and you get away from the numbers, has nothing to do with analytics. It has to do with your feeling as a head coach about your players and who they are as men, how they react, how they come into practice, how they walk, their body language. Are they tucking their shirts in? Are they being defiant? Are they being affably defiant, or are they being cancerously defiant? I mean, there's a lot of things that go on, in the relationship with the head coach and and a team, especially at 11-30. And so, coach him up is just a word. He knows exactly what I was talking about, and he went to work. And so, Eric, as you know, I think is one of the best coaches in the league. He's young, he's vibrant, he communicates with these guys, he knows them extremely well, and he's measured. Unlike me, he's measured. He's measured with the message, and he stays on line with the message. And I think players respond to the consistent message better than somebody who may go offline every now and then. And so there's always those moments that he does go offline, but they're measured, and I think that's the way it has to be. Last night, or 2 days ago, and just, I was proud of what Dave Fisdale did. As being a former coach here, I simply was. I don't care what anybody thinks. I think he went in and fought for his players, and fought for his city. I think everything he had to say had truth to it, real truth to it, and he took a hit for it. And every now and then, that comes out too, and that comes out of Eric, and that's what a coach feels at that time. And so I'm glad he's got some Heat DNA in him from that standpoint. But Eric is very measured. His message is great. I think the players don't get confused by the message, and he's very direct with them, and he's very direct with you guys night in and night out. So you guys should be, I don't know what you think. You should be proud to have him in front of you every night talking to you, because he doesn't BS you, and he doesn't give you anything else either. So that's a perfect coach.